Marcus. So I'm trying to get my head around all this technology here. You guys are pretty decently well equipped with electronics here in Estonia. My SD is quite bad, so I didn't understand all that Marcus was saying, but at least you told something about our flounders, I heard. So, yeah, that's interesting enough. Yeah, I will make sure to tell you when I go from one presentation to another. That's not so difficult. So, in terms of the interpretation, I will just speak as I usually do. Try to do a little bit slower. I'm used to only having 10 minutes or 20 minutes, so to have 2 hours is very, very nice. So now we have a presentation. I want to see, yes, this works. So when I talk about cormorants here, I'm talking about the subspecies sinensis. It's not the carbo, which is the coastal cormorant. We don't have that in Denmark, and we are not worried about any kind of management of carbo in EU either, because the coastal cormorant population is very stable, very nice, and it seems to do not much of a conflict damage anywhere. So when I say cormorant, what I mean is sinensis, just to qualify. So about myself, I'm a senior scientist. I've been working for Danish Technical University now for 25 years, and I'm not interested in birds as such. I'm not very much interested in predation and things. I'm mainly interested in fish behavior. So my studies have always focused on what do the fish do, where do they go, why do they do what they do. And to do that, we use telemetry, putting electronic tags in fish, and immediately we found out that all the tags, or a lot of them, end up in the cormorant colonies. So that's how I got into this. It was not because it was a study area, it was just because that was something that happened. So I've been studying these birds and the way they eat fish in Denmark and elsewhere in almost 20 years now, and collected quite a lot of documentation. So that's why I want to focus on this in this first talk. Next talk, I will talk much more about the management and the whole population and how it goes and so on. But this talk here, I try to only focus on these effects, because this is very difficult to do. An effect can be anything, so it's quite difficult to document this. So that's what I will try to focus on here. Okay, let's see if this here works. Yes. So if you want to document this impact, then one thing that is problematic is that you have to try to prove things that already happened in the past. So for example, to give you an example, we used to have brown trout, resident brown trout in all the rivers. And our anglers was really happy about these, because they go out with the worm and the little cork, and the kids could catch a nice little brown trout, take home and eat. Everybody was happy. And then suddenly this stopped, and there's no brown trout anymore. And we think we basically know it's because of the cormorants, but how do we prove this? So now I have a big project for 1 million kroner to study this here with the brown trout, but there are no brown trout. So how the hell can I study that? They're already gone. There's none. I've been trying now 2 years, couldn't find any. So I mean, this is difficult. It's like showing the ghost of a past. And of course, again, we have lack of fish to study. So when the cormorants have eaten them or something else, they're gone. So it's not easy to study. Then, of course, we have the year-to-year variation. You know, for example, like the pike perch sander have these great big fluctuations, and some other fish species do that too. So that makes it difficult. So you need more than just 1 year. You need more years to really do a good documentation. And then, of course, you have this problem here, that when you want to do, like I do, catch fish, tag them, see how many are eaten, you have to really take care of this. If you capture the fish, you anesthetize it, you put a tag in it, you put it out again, maybe it's very weak and can easily be eaten by a predator. So this has to be always studied very well too, which we have done. And of course you have to have some statistical confidence in your estimates. And this is the biggest problem for everybody always, is money. And we never get money for these cormorant studies, because the one ministry says, well, it's not us, we don't care about them, and the other ministry says, we don't think it's a problem. So nobody wants to pay for this here. So what I've been basically spending money for has been from the anglers. We have an angling license in Denmark, everybody pays per year, and that money can go to some studies too. So we have spent a little bit of money from that. And then I have done one larger EU project on cormorants too. But that's not so interesting for other people. It's just for scientists. It's always interesting to say, where the fuck do we get the money from? So that's how it is. Okay, so the methods I've been using have been pit tags, these little ones here. This is a 12 millimeter one, this is a 23, and this is a 35 millimeter pit tag. These are the ones that we basically use. You can put them in the fish, and you may be able to find them out in the nature. They don't have a long range. It's basically what normal people would call a chip tag, which you also use for dogs and cats and so on. But you have to scan them very close to find them. Then we use acoustic tags, which are just sending out an acoustic signal underwater. They are very good to get long-range detections of fish moving in salt water. And then in freshwater, we use radio tags with send a radio signal so you can find it. So those are basically the tags that we use. So if I'm during the talk about this or this or this, at least you know how they look now. So, and of course, again, we have 2 hours today. So if you have questions or anything, or if I'm doing some stupid mistakes or something, just interrupt me. It's we are not more people than we can have a talk on that. Okay. So the status now for Denmark in total is that we have documented very severe damage from cormorants on several fish populations, and also on the fishery and on the economy. That's how things are now in 2018, I would say. After 15 years of increasingly tough management, that means we do harder and harder things on the cormorant, we still have many conflicts. The cormorants may very well start to move inland here in Estonia. I don't know if they do, but if they do, then you are going to have a problem here too, I'm basically sure on that. So then you should be ready to do something. And we definitely cannot solve the problem alone in Denmark. We need this Nordic cooperation. Of course, that's much more I'm going to talk about in the next talk about how to manage these things. But as it is now, this is the conclusion in Denmark, that we're trying to establish a Nordic cooperation, and we always saw the Baltic countries, and especially Estonia, as a Nordic country. So it would be nice to have some kind of cooperation, which we have with Marcus and the university here. So the talk now will just basically, I'm just briefly talking about the population, because that will be the next talk, but then I will talk about predation studies we've done on the coast, in the lakes, and in the rivers, and what have we learned from all these years after that. Well, already from the photos, we learned that cormorants can eat a lot of different fish and also quite big fish. That's not a big surprise. So who has the problems when we talk about conflict? Well, first it was the pound net fishermen on the coast. When I started working with this, we had 800 professional pound net fishermen, and now we have about 5 left, I think. Then it was the recreational net fishermen that started to complain. There's still quite a lot of people who put out nets like they do in Estonia to catch a flounder or something they can eat in the evening, and they had the problems. Then later it was the anglers, and now we are also worried about biodiversity, because we see that some of our fish are actually going extinct because of the cormorant. So that's also a question now. So the story for the Danish part is that already in the 90s, the traditional pound net fishing disappeared. That's also when the cormorants really increased in numbers, and our coastal fishing was heavily reduced. And at that time, and now I'm talking about maybe in the 90s, we had relatively few but very large colonies. Then they started to collapse. In 2002 to 2008, there was not enough food, so the big colonies disappeared. And we also documented this heavy predation on the sea trout and salmon smolts. That was also around the turn of the century. So now we have more but smaller colonies. Now we have more birds overwintering. Ringing experiments have shown that these birds come from Sweden and from Finland. Luckily, they don't fly north in the winter, they always fly south, so we don't get any of your birds here at least. But the Swedish are the ones that makes most damage in Denmark, we can say. And in 2009 and 10, we found this change of behavior. Birds suddenly started to go inland to find fish, and they were also changing behavior, so they were not very afraid anymore. They would just fish in the river even if we are there. And in the recent years since then, we have much more problems in rivers, brooks, and lakes, and the grayling and the resident trout and the North Sea houting are all now threatened by predation. So that's just the status. So now you don't have to hear anymore. If you believe this, it's fine. Now I will try to tell you how we get to these conclusions. So on the coast, I will start out on the coast. I'm a freshwater fisheries biologist. I don't work on the coast normally, but in these cases with the cormorants, we have done some work out there. So I can tell you something about it. It would be nice to do more on the coast in Denmark, but of course, coastal systems are open. They're difficult to work with. They're expensive. It costs a lot of money. But what I can say is that the eelpout, what's the name of it? Okay. Basically disappeared. It's very, very few left. That's a fish that was everywhere in Denmark. The Danish waters were perfect habitat for them, and they were just like the potato of the sea. They were everywhere. Now we don't see them anymore. We have a documented impact on the flounders, documented impact on the eels, and a high impact on salmon on the coast. Okay, so those first studies we did was actually in Ringkøbing Fjord. This is the western part of Denmark. The biggest salmon river we have, Skjern River, goes in here. It's about 300 kilometers here and very shallow, you can see, so it's like a lagoon. There's a sluice out here where the smolts have to come out, and whatever has to come in goes in that way. And in this area we have a colony with more than 2,000 nests of cormorants. So that was an area that I felt was good suited to do some studies. So this is just a brief story about the fishermen catch in the Ringkøbing Fjord. And you can see that they were catching quite a lot of eel in the old days, and of course the eel have more or less just disappeared. The interesting part here is the flounders. Used to have up to a very, very high catch of flounders, and then we had the cormorants coming in, and the flounders basically stayed down at a very, very low level. And this is the same situation that we have seen with other species on the coast, that when the cormorants come up to a certain level, the fish go down and the fishermen stop fishing. So that's how it is. But of course we cannot say that this was the cause, but that's just the situation, how it was. So I just found a report from some of the key fishermen we have to show that when I say to Marcus that we don't have any flounders left on the coast, it's not entirely true, because as you can see, they do catch flounders in both in 5 and 16. The cormorants was already full speed here, so it's not like any difference on that. The interesting part is that you can see per gill net in 12 hours, the average is 0.8 fish. And that's even with the undersized too. So that means that they catch hardly anything. The dab, plaice, cod, turbot, almost not existing anymore. So it's just a way of saying that we don't monitor the coastal fish very well, but we lost the fishermen, and we also have a very, very little biomass on the coast now. So that's a big problem. So what did I do in Ringkøbing Fjord? Well, I thought we have to look at the eel. So we took 10,000 hatchery eels, you can say, from an eel farm, and then we put these little splinter magnetic tags in them. And at the same time, we also tagged 64,000 one-year salmon and released them in the river. So at least we had eel tagged, we had salmon tagged, and we also managed to tag some wild flounders. I got 4,000 small flounders, put the tags in them, put them back out again. Then, of course, it was interesting if we can find these little magnetic splinters in the pellets from the cormorants. So twice or 3 times a week, we were walking out in the colony, collecting these pellets and running them through the scanner. And if they go beep, then you know, okay, maybe there's a tag in there, and then you have the problem of finding out the tag. But that's how we did it. And then you back calculate, because the birds were counted, so you know how many pellets were produced every day, and then you can look at how many you catch, and then you have an estimate of the predation. And it looked something like this. Here's some of the tags we found from all those smolts that were tagged. And you can see this is the day after first collection. That means the fish were tagged here, and we started collecting here. And then you can see that every day, many hundred smolts were eaten by the cormorants. And this is typically the smolt period. This was April here and May here. So this is June up here. So that fits very well with what we would expect. Then we also, I just want to show you how the cormorants can actually eat these smolts in one of the rivers. I think I have to click somewhere here. There you got it. So it's just a little video showing how easy it is for them to catch. These are sea trout smolts in a wild river mouth, just where the river comes out on the coast, and they just have a nice little time out there. And it's not even a flock; it's just these single birds that do that. And of course, that bird, if these fish were tagged, that bird will have a pellet with a lot of tags in it. Interesting enough, in this same study, I had some students with a lot of time. So what they did was they collected these pellets and looked for otoliths, ear stones from all the fish to identify individual fish. And because, again, we knew how many birds there were there, we knew how many pellets there were, and every pellet is representative of one bird for one day. So then you can actually back calculate pretty good how much they eat. And you can see for flounders, my favorite little fish that I like so much, was 1.4 million flounders were eaten every year just in this estuary. And for dap was very high too. And even the fish like perch, that is not that common out there, 115,000 of those were eaten, 38,000 eels, 33,000 salmon. So even with the little ones here was quite high numbers. And that's only because there's so many birds. I mean, 2,000 nests is almost 10,000 birds there, so it's a lot of fish being eaten every day. Okay, so here's just a summary of the results. These studies were already done 14 years ago, you can see. By telemetry, we found that 40 to 50% of the tags that we put in smolts were recovered from this one colony. So that's the minimum of what they ate. From the coated wire tagging, we can see that 25% of the smolts were eaten. 40 to 50% of the tags yield were eaten just in that 1 year. And all of the flounders were eaten in 15 days. So they're just absolutely gone. The pellet analysis, as I showed these here numbers also. So that's at least a good indication that even a number of cormorant that is not unusual. It's very usual. Everywhere in Denmark we have these same numbers like here. But they can really eat a lot of other fish. Then we can look a little bit more to the salmon smolts. We have data from 2005. We didn't know whether they were wild or hatchery at this time, but we did 2 years ago, we knew, so that's why these are all wild, while these are wild and hatchery together. But you can see that the number that we tagged was not very high, of course, because these are very expensive electronic tags, but you can also see that these are the numbers that were lost in the fjord to predation. So again, very, very high numbers are lost during the migration through this estuary due to cormorant predation. And just to show you how, not that you should read this whole mess, but this is smolt predation by cormorants estimated. This is a paper that we have accepted now. It's going to come out. And we have all these studies here, all individual studies done on different types, different methods, and the mortality by cormorants are listed out here, and you can see the average is 47%. So that actually means that when a smolt is eaten, that means one less, some fewer salmon coming back for sure, because there's no density-dependent mortality. Once you reach the smolt age, it's just getting out there, getting fat, coming back. So when we have 47% fewer smolts, we also have 47% fewer salmon coming back. So that's just the situation like it is. And as I talked to some about you, we have also now extended these salmon smolt studies to other countries. So we are working now with Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, France, Spain, Sweden, to do the same type of studies. And so far we have done it for 2 years, and we found very, very high mortalities also in these other countries. So it's not very good, and not many reach that size. You don't know how you say that a dog and its owner looks like each other, and a little bit on the fat side there. More studies here this is from a paper we published from the Baltic Sea. These are the different ISIS squares in the Baltic Sea, of the areas of these. This is the consumption, how much fish is actually caught per square kilometer, humans, seals, cormorants, and total. And this is for perch, and this is for pike. There's a lot of numbers here, but I tried to condense this and put them into one graph here. This is from that here paper, showing that here you can see that for perch, humans are catching this much, seals this much, cormorants this much. So if you think that fishing has an influence on the fish stocks in the Baltic, then you must also believe that the cormorant have an influence, because they actually take out much more fish than do the humans and the seals. For pike, it's much different, but they still take out a lot of smaller pike. The thing is that the cormorants, when they eat, they don't have the quota, they don't have minimum size, they don't have a protected period of time, and they don't have a discard ban. They just basically eat it, and that's it. So, so that's just from the Baltic Sea. So now I go, that was basically what I have of documentation from the coast in Denmark. There are some other reports that my institute did in Copenhagen, looking at the effect of one colony on the flounders in the area around, and they did find a very significant effect that the closer you got to the colony, the fewer fish you had and the lower survival. But that's reports that already been out there for many years. So when we look at freshwater, I try to see what is the fish consumption in total, and it's some 112,000 tons. And as you see, the cormorants are by far the biggest consumer. I know they don't eat everything in freshwater, but if they did, they are the ones having the capacity much more than the heron, mink, or otter and grebe. Was there one of the animals you didn't know which were? Okay. Grebe, yeah. What the hell is the Latin name of it? Oh, okay. See, I'm not an ornithologist, but I actually found quite a lot of smolt tags also in grebe. They can eat them. If the smolt come into a lake, they will eat them too. So in 2014, I made this report where I tried to get all this information together. So I looked at all the predations and basically with the focus on cormorants. And as you see, this is the conclusion from this paper, saying that we have judged the predation pressure to be high. In particular, grayling, salmon, and brown trout are being predated upon in unsustainable levels, and some populations are close to local extinction. So this is basically what everybody, or not everybody, but this is the consensus in the scientific world right now of Denmark, that we have this very, very high predation pressure. So then we actually have a whole new thing now that went on since, well, it's not so new. 2009-10, we had cold winters. Suddenly we started to see cormorants in our rivers. So that's basically a new phenomenon. Here's a little video clip from one of my friends from the River Storn, which is now probably our best salmon river altogether. We have lots of big salmon coming up there, we used to have. And you see, this is the springtime when the smolts are migrating, and these guys were really having a big party out there. And you see, they just keep coming up and coming up. And of course, these people have spent so much volunteer time saving the fish here. We have spent hundreds of millions of kroner to restore the rivers, remove the dams, getting them back into very, very good natural shape. This is the first river in Denmark where we don't stock any fish anymore. It's all wild fish now, but they are really being threatened by the cormorant. So that's also a place where there's a high conflict intensity. So this was what's happened. We had these 2 cold winters. Lots of cormorant decided to stay in Denmark. They say, oh, Denmark is normally nice. We stay here all winter. And then it got freezing cold, and the lakes were frozen, and the coast were frozen, and they couldn't find any place to find food. So we saw pictures like this from a lot of places. But the thing is that the only place they could go then was into the rivers. So suddenly we had them in the rivers, which we never had before. And here you can see, here's a little study from Omo with grayling. In 2009, before the problems, we fished this through, and we had a 412 grayling on this stretch, which is very normal. And then already the year after, in 2010, we did the same 2-kilometer stretch and found 6. So that's basically the situation in all the rivers. Marcus, you look very puzzled now.
Because so many figures, just keep it for 10 more seconds.
Yeah.
So in 1 year, from 400, it became 6, yeah?
Yeah. Yes, and Harius, yeah. That's true. And you can see the ones we find has a lot of, and these are all typical cormorant bites. After all these years working, I think I can tell the difference between cormorants, seals, and otters by now, because they have a very, very specific way of biting into the fish. And here's some more scientific data that we have also published from a longer time series of data here. Unfortunately, we didn't have anything in between here, but you can see this was like the normal, very, very high density of grayling. Then we got lots of otters, wild fish otters in the area, so we think the otters got the grayling population down to this stable level here, and then we got the cormorants in, and now we have very, very little there. So, trout is also being eaten by cormorants. They really like trout. These are actually sea trout on the coast being taken by cormorants. I have a good example of that from a special index river we have. It's in a national park. There's no agriculture, no fishing, no people around, no dams. Everything is as pristine as it can be. So this is 35-kilometer long river. It goes out to the coast, and it has salmon spawning, it has sea trout spawning, and it used to have a huge population of grayling and a very, very big population of nice big brown trout for dry fly fishermen. And the fishermen came to me and said, we cannot catch anything anymore. What has happened? The river is better and nicer than ever, but there's no fish. And I said, let's try and electrofish the whole thing from the very top to the very bottom. So in 1 year, we did 35 kilometers of electrofishing. We caught little grayling, we caught sea trout smalls, and we got brown trouts. So it's very pristine, as I said, very little human influence. We electrofished the whole river. High efficiency, we were about 80 to 90% efficient with the electrofishing. We got lots of these little ones, and then we caught 8 grayling in total. And we got 15 brown trout in total, over 30 centimeters. So that means that the grayling is basically extinct from this river because, I mean, 8 fish is not enough to have any kind of population, and the brown trout is also gone also. So that was really terrible to see such a nice river. So what we then tried to do was in another river, we did radio tagging in October, 25 grayling. And this is actually a river we selected in the southwestern part of Denmark because that's the only part of Denmark that has no colonies, so very low density of cormorants. I talked to the local people. I have a friend that lives on the river there. He's a fishing guide, and he says, no, we don't have cormorants here. We don't see them. So I thought, okay, then we must find out what goes on in this river. So we actually tagged these fish here, put them out. They all survived through October, November, December, January, but then we had some birds coming in February, and then we also only had 2 grayling that survived. So 80% of the whole fish biomass disappeared. This is from a game camera we had down there. This is the only documentation that there is cormorants in the river, and the guy, my student who did the tracking there, he was there every day, and he saw a maximum of 6 birds. So that means that we think that 6 birds that were there for 3 weeks could actually eat 23 out of 25 grayling and 80% of the whole fish biomass. And then I tried to make up the numbers because the biomass is already low, and it suited pretty well on that. So we have published this last year in a paper about cormorant disappearance. For trout, we have tried with this pit tagging stuff in 2010, 11, and 12. Pit tagged all these trout, and these are the ones we found in just one roosting site. Not a colony of cormorants, just a place where they were sleeping. So you can see even here, just the ones we found there was quite high numbers in total. So we actually know that the brown trout are also being eaten in very high numbers from the cormorants. Then I was very interested in trying to look in the river now on the juvenile salmonids, which means the pre-smalls. The fish are, like you know, that salmon and trout are usually 1 to 2 years in the river before they become smalls. And we think that maybe all these cormorants in the rivers are doing something with that. So what we tried to do was to cover up an area. So we had 2 different stretches. One was covered, one was not, and then compare how they were. Because what we actually saw here was that this is our salmon spawning run in the Skjern River, and you can see it came from almost nothing. Then we removed a lot of obstacles. We did regulations of fishing and so on, and it has been just a very, very nice success story all up till here, and then we started to go the other way. And you see, in 2010 was the first year where we saw all the cormorants in the river. So it suited well with that if they ate the smolts here, then we would have very low returns here. So we were thinking, okay, let's try to take a look at that. So what we did, as I said, was cover up some areas, and then we had control areas that were not covered up. This is just a pilot study. We only done that for 1 year now, and I just got the results. We're doing next year now. Did you go there, Christy? Did you? Yeah, so you've seen that, this pretty crazy setup. Anyway, what I found out was that this is the density of fish here, the number of fish per 100 meters, and this here is the control stretched one, and the covered stretch, and control and covered. So we have two different areas. Clearly this river here has much more fish than this one. But what is interesting is how much it goes down. As you can see, from October, the autumn to the spring, where we have no cover, just normal condition, it goes down very much to very low levels. In the ones where we have covered, you see it's much less here and also much less here. So at least there's an indication here that there is something going on, that is not just a normal winter mortality, but that some fish are lost. And actually we came out with when I analyzed these data, it showed that these covered areas would produce 5 times more smolts than would the control areas. So it's quite a big impact already there. And here you can see some of the photos from our little cameras there. They make quite nice photos actually. Here you can see both a heron and a cormorant in one of the control stretch. And here's also a little cormorant having a time. And we put these cameras up also in lakes because we're doing studies on the lakes too. And we get quite fantastic photos of them. Look at this here. And that one, I kind of like these. I think it's pretty cool to put them up. So we can really recommend using the cameras out there. It's a lot of time that you have to spend to look through all the photos, but boy, there's some funny ones in between. So anyway, then the last thing I will talk about with trout is actually the adult sea trout, because we found big sea trout being eaten by cormorants. This one is in a river where the sea trout is almost extinct. This is the last big one we have seen, and of course it was in the stomach or beak of a cormorant.
This was not shot or?
No, we found it like that. It died because it tried to eat this big one. It was 59 centimeters, this one. So that was too big a mouthful. Yeah, they do that, especially in the winter. The cormorants are so hungry, they try to eat whatever, and often you'll find them dead like this. The most crazy story I ever heard was a guy that told me, and in pure honesty, he wasn't drunk or anything. He told me, I was sitting in my house drinking my coffee. I heard a big slam on the roof, and I was like, what is that? And then I went out with the ladder, looked on my roof, and there was a dead cormorant there and a fish hanging out, big trout. So that cormorant had taken this fish and fly off, and then of course it's suffocated. I don't know, it's a crazy story anyway. This is not science, it's anecdotal, but I think it's true. But they do this quite a lot. So anyway, we know they eat them, but we have no idea of if that has any impact at all. So this is the data that Christy have been looking at first, and that I'm trying to get something out of now, is from a river called Villestrup River, where we have been tagging smolts for many years. And then some years back, we also tagged all the adult salmon, so sea trout. So we went through, electrofished, and we tagged 800 sea trout with pit tags, okay? So we know these pit tags were from adult fish. Then we go out and scan this cormorant roosting site, not even a colony, just some trees where they sit, and we scanned this, and here's what we found. So this is the fraction, the proportion of the tags of the fish that was captured or tagged that was actually found there. So you see it's up to 45% of all the tags. And here you can see this is the size of the fish that we tagged. So we tagged most fish in this size, and of course fewer fish in the very big ones. But look at this, what we caught. Look at that. We found all these tags in there. So it's like 50% of the fish that were tagged in this size class ended out in a cormorant colony, but up to 50 centimeters. You see, they didn't take one single one over 50, but 122 tags were found in this size range. So, very surprisingly, the cormorants can actually have a very significant impact on these smaller sea trout first time they have spawned. So you see that start made me think that I may be able to make some kind of life cycle impact assessment. I don't like modeling very much. I don't like to put everything together and try to do it. But I think maybe for pedagogic reasons this is interesting because we have a situation without cormorants and we have one with cormorants. And if we say we have 1,000 little fry or eggs from a sea trout, then we have this predation that we documented by the net covers. And then we get 100 smolt out of here. It's normally 10% survival from there. Here it's 4 times less, so here we only got 25. Then we know this predation here is from all this 47% that I'm using. So 47% of these are eaten, that leaves us with 13. And here we only lose 10% because that's what we know we usually lose to pike and other natural other predators. So we are now with 90 post-smolts and 13 post-smolt. Then we don't know anything about this one, predation on the coast. That's one thing we have to look at, but we don't know now. But we think it's quite important still. So we say that out of these 13, only 2 come back as spawners. Out of these 19, 30 come back. So you can see it's a mortality both places. Then we have this, what we showed now, predation after spawning. Means that we get 30 large sea trout out of the 1,000 here. Here we got 1. So you can see that these are add-on effects. So if this is true and the numbers we find are true, this is the situation with the cormorants and this would be the situation without the cormorants. So it's a very, very significant life cycle impact we have. So that was streams. Now I will go into the lakes. Not that I've been doing much on the lakes, but here you see my colleague Christian Skov have been done a lot. He's not the one tracking here, but he's the one who's done these studies. And here's that ground scanner that we use to find the pit tags, which are this here, out in the cormorant colonies. So Christian has been very interested in studying fish behavior. He's been studying movement of fish from one lake to another lake and around in the lakes. So by that he has been tagging lots of lake fish. And actually we found more than 1,000 tags in a colony that was quite far away from the lake. This lake was not known, or that's actually from one lake here and 2 lakes here, so it's 3 lakes in total. And all these 3 lakes were not known to have cormorants in big time. Nobody saw much of cormorants there. We'd never heard about that this should be a problem. But still we got all these fish found in there. And you can see that, for example, from the perch, we got 1 year, 70% of the tags were recovered in that cormorant colony. So they do eat quite a lot of them. And what's interesting is that we found so many tags that we could start looking a little bit about what sizes the cormorants are eating. Because we hear a lot of times people saying that, yeah, but the cormorants only eat small fish and they basically eat like roach and perch, roach and bream. So it's actually a good thing because it's almost like biomanipulation. And we thought, okay, let's take a look at this. And here you can see the blue line is the number tagged. So you can see we tagged a lot in this size, a lot in this size, and then fewer and fewer of the large ones. These are all perch. And here's what we find in the colonies, the proportion of these fish eaten. And you can see that for the small size, 10 to 15 centimeters, cormorants eat, yeah, quite a few, but not many as we have tagged. So this is the percentage over here predated. So you can see that here they would eat like less than 20% of these here. When we come up to the larger ones, we are up to 30%, and for the even larger ones, we are all up to almost all of them. So it's clear that this here shows that the cormorants prefer the big fish. Well, they don't prefer, but they eat a larger proportion of the big fish than they do of the small fish. So that shows that fish over 25% are just much more vulnerable. So they have an average predation of more than 40% from the cormorants. And for the pike, it's quite interesting too. Of course, the big pike are not eaten by cormorants at all. Not a single tag from these big fish were found. But when you look at the smaller pike, then you really see that, yeah, the real small ones, not so bad. The ones between 25 and 30, big predation, more than 50%. So again, these are quite big lakes and just one colony, not just everywhere, but just one place where we scanned. And we still found that many tags. So this was is quite surprising. But you know that the cormorants like to eat pike, and they like to eat big pike too. So they do take a lot of our fish. Yeah, these are from from, I think this is from a lake in Latvia or somewhere. But they really take some big ones. Then I have, the last story I have from this here documentation is actually this North Sea houting. It's a whitefish species that can tolerate salt water, so it's one that we have in some of the rivers. It's the most threatened fish in EU because it's only found now in one single river in the whole world, and that's in Vidåen in Denmark. It's the only place you find this species. It's a discussion whether it's a species or a subspecies, but it's called Coregonus oxyrhynchus. So, and it has this long nose and it has the salt tolerance. And this fish has almost disappeared now from Ribe and Vardå. There's still this population in Vidåen, and it seems that predation from cormorant is actually the major threat to these fish now because we spend a lot of time and effort to save these. The fish are monitored by electrofishing and gill netting, and there has been a pit tagging program also some years back. Here's the Wattensee, the national park. We have a national park, Wattensee here, and also the German and the Dutch part is part of a World Heritage Center. So it's kind of like high profile protection area. And the funny thing is that the birds are extremely protected here because the Wattensee is so important for migratory birds. So everything in this national park goes on birds, birds, birds all the time. And then we say, what about this houting? They're only found in this river now. They used to be up here, here, and here, and now we have very, very few individuals left here. We still have some here, but that's the only place in the whole world. So this has been a little bit of a conflict the last years. In 2006 to 12, we used 13.4 million euros to try to save this fish. So two hydropower stations were gone, 11 weirs fish farms was removed. So we have now 120 kilometers of lost habitats for the North Sea houting. All the channelized river sections have been re-engineered and remandered, going back to natural. All this was great for salmon, great for sea trout. Should be great for the houting also, but it didn't. Even 470 hectares of new nursery area was established for this fish, and still we didn't see anything. Ribe population has been followed since 2011, almost gone. Vardå, same situation. Vidå still holds a decent population. We think we have about 2,000 individuals left in the whole world now. So where is that problem? Well, you can see this is how the fish look, the few we find. 40 to 50% of them have these bite marks from cormorants. So it's pretty clear that is a big problem. We also acoustic tagged a few of these fish down in Vidåen and immediately found 40% of the tags under the cormorant trees. So we think we don't know it, we don't have documentation as such, but there's a lot of indications that this may be the big problem. So you can imagine how it is to try to get permission to keep cormorants out of such a national park. I'm a member of the board of the national park, and every time we have a meeting I say, we don't want cormorants to breed in this. And they say, yeah, but it's birds, so we want more birds. I said, yeah, but we don't want them. We have enough of them. So until now, we don't have cormorants in the national park colonies. We have lots of birds, but they don't have any colonies there, and I hope we keep it like that. So actually, there's plans now for a management plan for North Sea houting. It comes out this year, and maybe they are suggesting that we should cover the whole river with nets. So we'll see how that works. So the other studies I could talk about was, like I said, we had this impact of cormorant on flounder populations. We had also a study doing ecological modeling for Limfjorden ecopath, showing that the predation as it is now from cormorants and seals is 20 times bigger than the fish stock in the whole area. So it's kind of, they gave up on this because the results were bullshit. Like, for example, for flounder, it was found that the cormorants and the seals ate 2,000% of the biomass. And of course that cannot be. So something is showing me that in the Limfjord there's fish coming in and immediately they get eaten. So when you monitor, you don't see the fish, they get eaten immediately. So that's how it works there. In this Halsø, that's the lake where you were at with Stig. Yeah, that's where 20 to 50% of the smolts are eaten from these lake trout. We also have sea trout funin in sea trout smolt in funin. Very, very big studies here with lots of pit-tagged fish. Found losses between 30 and 60%. And in Randersfjord we did the same. and surprisingly enough, no big impact. We had like 95% survival of smolts there, all through this long fjord. This was not a lagoon fjord. This is more like a deep, narrow fjord that goes like, and there's lots of hiding places and so on. But there are cormorants there, but at least I just wanted to put this up as one study we did with not big impact, because it can actually be done. But all the other places we looked, quite a lot of impact. So my conclusion would be that we have a significant impact in rivers, lakes, and coast. We have documentation that predation is the main regulating factors now for many of our fish stocks. It's much more important than habitat, it's more important than pollution, it's more important than fishing and people in general. Maybe you could argue that agriculture in Denmark is as important, because we have a country that is basically raped everywhere from agriculture, but it's difficult to assess. So the effects would be economic loss. We lose the commercial fishing on the coast have been lost totally. Recreational fishing is also suffering very much now. We have fewer and fewer people fishing. Our sports fishing associations are complaining. They used to have 50,000 members. Now they have 12,000 or 13,000 members, and so few people start fishing because there's no fish to catch, so it's not very funny anymore. And that gives us a cultural loss. All these little harbors that the tourists like to come in, you know, the tourists come to a harbor, they go with a plastic bag to this boat and say, can we get some fish? And they said, yeah, 10 kroner and you can get some fish. Now it's impossible. Like I say, we can't even find any flounders at all. We have to go to the supermarket and buy the pangasius or the Norwegian salmon or something to get fish. And we also have problems with this biodiversity loss, because we lose the grayling in many rivers. We don't have them at all anymore. This whole local population are lost, and we are afraid to lose also the houting. And now we have also seen very, very big problems in reaching the Water Framework Directive requirements. You know all that we have to monitor fish as one of the biological quality elements in the rivers, and because the cormorants removed the fish, we cannot reach this. So we have very, very few fish there, and that gives us a big problem. So you can say for this Article 9 in the Birds Directive, we have enough documentation to apply derogation, meaning that we have enough argumentation to go and regulate the birds. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next talk. So here's some of the papers that has been published on these things that I showed back from 2001 and 2 and all the way up to now. So you can take a look at this here list, and all these papers are easy to get, or you can get them from me. But of course they will be in the English language, of course. So that was the first talk.
Thank you, Niels. Now please take this, because I switched to Estonian.
Keep it, or whatever.
Jaa, räägin parem eesti keeles.
jah, it works, jah. Õige, ma lubasin eesti keeles rääkida, räägin eesti keeles. Kõigepealt, et pean tunnistama, et aitäh Nilsile, ja pean tunnistama, et isegi minul oli, kes ma teadsin paljudest neist asjadest, oli päris raske seda jälgida. Sellepärast, et nagu ma nägin, isegi 1 tund ei olnud, 55 minutit ei olnud piisav, et minna sügavale või detailidesse kõikides nende uuringutega, mida on siis tehtud tunduvalt rohkem kui 10. Ma sain aru, et 15-20 uuringut. Et võib-olla minu esimene kommentaar ongi see, et ma olen päris kindel, et enamikel või paljudel inimestel jäid mõned nüansid kätte saamata, ja just sellepärast ongi väga hea, et see video on, et te võite siis üle vaadata veel, mida ta täpselt ütles, sest minu meelest olid seal palju selliseid andmeid, mis seal kirjas olid täiesti šokeerivad. Oleks minul Eestis sellised andmed, ma räägiks igaks sellisest asjast pool tundi ja pikalt. Tema pani selle korraks 10 sekundit ja järgmine asi, eks ju. Aga rohkem ma ise ei ütle midagi, nüüd meil on paar minutit aega, et kui on mõni küsimus sellel teemal, siis hea meelega. Jah, Hanno, kui anname sulle.
Ma ei saanud ühest asjast aru, et kas need kormoranide arv on siis plahvatuslikult kasvanud seal Taanis mingite aastate jooksul, et see võrdlusmoment oli puudu, et palju siis need 10 aastat tagasi ja palju neid siis täna on?
Yeah. That's a good question there, and of course I should have maybe shown that, but I kind of put that in the next talk. So the next talk I will show you directly how the Danish population was. Basically, in Denmark we had the cormorants, they were protected like everywhere else in 1980. So from 80 to 92, we had a huge increase. From 93-4, it was flat, and now it's basically up there. So for 30 years, we have had a very high level of cormorants. So we don't have much of a data before, not for the coast. So for the coast, we don't have before data, you can say. For this river thing, because they changed the behavior in 2009, then we can say before and after. On the coast, so unfortunately, we don't have any data on the capture. I know that if we have shown these net catches, these catch per unit effort for the nets from 1980 or 1990, we would have been on maybe 25 flounders per net was normal at that time. But we didn't, so we don't have that data.
No väga hea, et teil on nii palju andmeid, see tähendab ka seda, et tegelikult väga paljud neist andmetest on minu arust ülekantavad Eestisse, et ega siis kalad on samad, jõed on lähedased ja seetõttu on mõnes mõttes ka selline hea olukord, et meie siin Eestis võib-olla ei peagi nii palju oma raha kulutama, et kõiki neid asju üle uurida. Ja see on ka üks põhjus, mis me Nilsi siia kutsusime, et teadus on rahvusvaheline, et ei ole vaja niimoodi, et nüüd me hakkame kõiki neid asju järgi tegema, et pigem me usume seda, mis seal oli. Kas on veel küsimusi?
Yeah, it's a good point.
Kuulata, kuna ma ise olen sõitnud läbi Läänemere ääre kuni Narvast kuni Klaipedani, ma olen neid kalu kõik ise ka Baltimere äärest näinud. Kurb on see, et täna siin on väga vähe Eesti kalureid kohal. Ja Eestis on see ka pilt samasugune. Aga ma ei tahaks teada, kuidas te näete, et seda kormorani arvukust piirata?
It's next talk, actually.
Yes, I will try. That will be the next talk, and I will, because we have now worked for 15 years with good management. I think our management plans are good, and we have really tried that. We have tried to solve the problem, and I say, already now I can say we didn't succeed very much. As I said in the start, 15 years of hard management have not solved the conflicts. We still have the conflicts. But I have some ideas, of course, and it all involves international cooperation. These birds are one population. It's the same birds that go here, there, everywhere. So when you shoot some, there's new ones coming in. Just an example is in Germany, in Bayern, in the Bundesland Bayern, they didn't want the cormorants. So they made a decision. You know that Bayern is like an anarchistic place, so they don't give a damn about Brussels and EU. So they just say, okay, we don't want the cormorants. So they had people counting cormorants in 2005 or 6. We got 6,000 cormorants in the winter. Okay, it's okay to shoot 6,000. So they shot every bird there were. Next year they counted 6,000 again, shot 6,000, they kept doing it. Now they shoot 25,000 per year. But they still have 25,000 because they just come in. I mean, it's just like there's room for us, so we come in here. And because there are so many birds are produced in Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Holland, wherever, they come down there. So that's how it is.
Aitäh, Niels, ja aitäh selle küsimuse eest, sest tegelikult on täiesti tõsi, et me ju tahaks, et siin oleks palju rohkem inimesi, aga ütlen veel kord, et teie, kes te siin olete, saate seda üle vaadata ja siis soovitaks teile, kui te vestlete inimestega, kellel on teemaks või küsimusi kormoranide kohta, et siis lihtsalt saata neid nii-öelda sellele kodulehele seda vaatama ja kindlasti meie Mereinstituudis ja Kalanduse teabekeskuses hea meelega vastame neile küsimustele ja edastame, vahendame seda informatsiooni, mida Niels ja siis ka Marina on teistes riikides teinud. Ma usun, et nüüd on aeg sealmaal. Üks küsimus veel, jah.
Aitäh. Kasemaa VRKÜ-st. Mulle tundus, kui ma kuulasin seda ettekande lõppu, et teil on selline probleem, et puudub koostöö või puudub arusaamine kalanduse, kalade ja lindude kaitsmise vahel või nende populatsioonide koostööst arusaamise vahel. Sellepärast, et kui ma saan aru, linnukaitsjad soovivad kaitsta linde, katastroofiline on olukord kalandusega, aga see peaks olema ka hoiatavaks näiteks meile, et me suudaksime rutem reageerida, see oleks võib-olla Markusele juba küsimus, ja alustada varakult koostööd, et näha loodust tervikuna. Aitäh.
Ja, ma kommenteerin kõigepealt, et loomulikult täpselt õige mõte ja selle koostöö üks vahendeid või üks selliseid algetappe ongi siin täna, et me sellest räägime. Niels, do you want to comment this?
No, I totally agree. Yeah. It's clear that in Estonia now you have fish on the coast. I'm surprised to see that there's still possible to put a net out. You have people who actually live from fishing. They go out and catch fish on the coast, which is the way we would like to do it. In Denmark, we have high political standards. We want the coastal fishing. We want the sustainable fishing, that the pound net fishermen was the best fishing because they just put up the net, they look what they take, and the rest goes out, it swims on, nothing dies. It's very nice fishing. Very good fresh fish from the same day. People can buy local, all the things that the politicians want. And now it's gone. We don't have it. So it's nice to see that, or hear at least, that you have it here in Estonia. But again, it's not because I come and say, oh, everything will be terrible here, because I think you have a different situation here. You have a different climate. Mm-hmm. You have these winters. You still have winters that are hard with ice on the lakes and so on. So the risk that your birds will do like ours, suddenly start to eat in the rivers, is not so high. I still think you might have a problem here with the smalls and with some of the recruitments, but in general, you are in very good shape in Estonia, even though you have many cormorants, which is great. But still, we would really like you to cooperate internationally with us, because that would benefit everybody. And as Markus says, we don't have to invent the deep plate or the wheel everywhere. And this is the problem Marina will talk about too, because she's struggling in Finland to even have the Finnish authorities to accept that there could be a problem in Finland. Because they say, no, it's just Denmark. It's just in Denmark. In here, no problem, it's just over there. And as you say, it may be true. Who knows? But they should look at it.
Ja täpselt nii, ma tahan ka paarile asjale lihtsalt ütelda, minust on nii oluline tähelepanu pöörata sellele, et me kulutame tegelikult Euroopa Liidu fonde ju väga suurel määral, et nii-öelda taastada või edus hoida traditsioonilist rannakalandust. Samamoodi nagu siin me kuulsime, Taanis oli projekt, kus 13 miljonit eurot pandi selleks nii-öelda magama, nagu eesti keeles öeldakse, kasutati ära selleks, et siis nende Põhjameres elav ja jõgedes kudev siig, mis on väga ohustatud, et see siis selle olukord paraneks, kulutati 13 miljonit eurot, aga selgub, et tänu sellele, et seal on kormoranid, sellest rahast tegelikult ei olnud mingisugust kasu. Et see ei ole ju raha mõistlik kasutus tegelikult. Aga ma arvan, et nüüd on aeg Nielsile anda sõna järgmiseks ettekandeks, sest kell on sealmaal. Thank you. I think it's time to start the next.